This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices gained on Friday but retreated from session highs after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened sanctions on Russia if it fails to reach a ceasefire with Ukraine. Brent crude futures settled at $70.36 a barrel, up 90 cents, or 1.3%. West Texas Intermediate futures finished at $67.04, up 68 cents, or 1.02%. Trump said in a post on Truth Social that he was strongly considering sanctions on Russian banks and tariffs on Russian products because its armed forces continue attacks in Ukraine.
U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright estimates it would take $20 billion in years to accomplish President Donald Trump's goal of refilling the strategic petroleum reserve to its maximum capacity, the Energy Department said on Friday. President Donald Trump said on his first day in office he wants to fill the reserve up to the top as part of a policy to support oil and gas. Former President Joe Biden's administration sold nearly 300 million barrels from the reserve, including a 180 million barrel sale in 2022 after Russia invaded Ukraine. The sales pushed the SPR to the lowest level in 40 years.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The U.S. government is studying ways it could ease sanctions on Russia's energy sector as part of a broad plan to enable Washington to deliver swift relief if Moscow agrees to end the Ukraine war, according to two sources familiar with the matter. Reuters had reported earlier in the week that the United States was drawing up plans to potentially lift Russian sanctions on select entities and individuals, but it was not clear at the time whether the initiative would include Russia's enormous oil and gas industry. Russia is among the world's largest oil and gas producers, and the U.S. has sought to starve Russia of the cash it needs for the war effort by targeting the industry with sanctions, and by leading a multilateral effort to cap the price of Russian oil exports to $60 a barrel.
China's crude oil imports fell 5% in the first 2 months of 2025 versus year-ago levels, data showed on Friday, as tougher U.S. sanctions on ships carrying Russian and Iranian oil and a Chinese port ban slowed flows into the world's top importer. Imports during January and February were 83.85 million metric tons, or about 10.38 million barrels per day, BPD, according to the General Administration of Customs, down from 10.74 million barrels of oil per day in the corresponding period last year. China releases combined import data for January and February to smooth out the impact of the week-long Lunar New Year holiday, which fell in late January this year. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Copper prices slid on Friday on weak trade data from top metals consumer China, selling by miners and as investors reduced positions amid volatile changes in U.S. tariff policy. Benchmark 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange, LME, dropped 1.7% to $9,572 a metric ton by 17:20 GMT, while U.S. COMEX copper futures lost 2.6% to $4.68 a lb. LME copper touched its highest in 4 months on Thursday at $9,739 a ton on a weak dollar and after U.S. President Donald Trump relaxed his tariffs on Canada and Mexico.
China's exports of rare earths declined 3% in the first 2 months of 2025 from the same period a year earlier, data from the General Administration of Customs showed on Friday. Exports of the group of 17 minerals from the world's largest producer stood at 8,511 metric tons during those months, the data showed. Imports tumbled 24.1% to 16,922.2 tons. China combines data for January and February to smooth out the impact of the Lunar New Year holidays.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
China announced tariffs on over $2.6 billion worth of Canadian agricultural and food products on Saturday, retaliating against levies Ottawa introduced in October and opening a new front in a trade war largely driven by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threats. The levies, announced by the Commerce Ministry and scheduled to take effect on March 20, match the 100% and 25% import duties Canada slapped on China-made electric vehicles and steel and aluminium products just over 4 months ago. By excluding canola, which is also known as rapeseed, and was one of Canada's top exports to the world's #1 agricultural importer prior to China investigating it for anti-dumping last year, Beijing may be keeping the door open for trade talks.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.